Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. I'm your host Frenzy, and today we are going over the lore spell changes. Now, there's a lot I want to cover when it comes to the Darkmoor update. Overall, I think Darkmoor was fantastic. There's a couple things I want to see changed. There's a couple things I would like to see for the future, but we don't have time for all of this, and the main thing I want to cover, at least for today, will be the lore spell changes, because I find them the most interesting. There has been changes to utilities and everything when it comes to the Shadow Fusion system, which used to be known as Shadow Enhanced spells, and also general spells, but most general spells mainly has been balancing changes, so it could be like, oh, increase or decrease damage or decrease utility. Nothing too interesting there. Shadow Enhanced hits, unfortunately, or Shadow Fusions for that matter, their biggest flaw is the Shadow Pip system. Now, you could say it's the same issue with Arch Mastery and the lore spells requiring an Arch Mastery Pip, but to my experience, I find Arch Mastery to be a lot more reliable in the PvE setting in comparison to Shadow Pips. Shadow Pips is just something that I just can't rely on. My personal opinion is I would love that we just did away with the Shadow Pip system and switch over to the Arch Mastery system and have that be included with Shadow Pips, and have Shadow Pips be part of the selectable school pips. And if you were to worry about potential spamming in PvP, then you can decide to apply school pips to path B's and C's in the Shadow Fusion system, as most people are going to be using path A anyway for the sake of damage, and still have pretty solid utility afterwards as well. But that's just my opinion. Again, we'll be making a video on that sometime in the future, but without further ado, let's actually get started with the lore spell changes. And again, shouts outs to Genevieve for going over all these lore spell changes. We got a tier list right here going from amazing to alright. First spell is going to be the Reindeer Knight spell for Ice Wizards, and biggest change is going to be the path C. We now have the select target system of 320 ice damage, and then applies a minus 70% shield. Now, I don't know, and I'm not sure if it's been confirmed or denied as to how the path C works. Now, we do know that the select target mechanic is a new mechanic that they have in Wizard101. It's less punishing in comparison to the division system that we had in Mirage. You get the max effect at one enemy, and as you select more enemies, the amount of damage that a spell will do, or in this case healing as well, because healing is included with select target mechanics, it goes down, but it's less punishing. Whole point. Now, this was just mainly just like a balancing thing that the devs wanted to do when it comes towards AoEs. That's kind of the main thing there. But what we have here, I would say pretty decent. It really just depends on if this is going to be the shield will be all allies, or the shield is just going to be for the caster only. My guess is path C is going to be for the caster only, because it doesn't indicate that the shield will apply to all allies. We know that you can select targets, but we don't know about the utility portion of it. So I would say Reindeer Knight will probably go into, I would say it's probably like in the whatever tier, because I just don't know if it's AoE shield or not. Like, if it is an AoE shield, I would love to assume it's an AoE shield. For now, I would say if it's an AoE shield that's 70%, I think it's in a really good tier, even amazing tier. But if it is just a single target shield, then we will probably just put this in the whatever tier. If I could, I'd probably put this in the middle, but we're just going to assume that it is a AoE shield that's 70%, because the damage reduction definitely is there with the select target mechanic. So I would say we'll leave it at good tier. Next spell is going to be Celestial Intervention. Now, on the left side is old version, right side is the newer version. What we have here is, initially it was 240 per shield sacrifice. It's changed its mechanic naming to Gambit. That was kind of the whole point of Celestial Intervention. It was supposed to be a Gambit. For those who are unaware, Gambits are going to be with stuff that benefits you. So it will be hanging effects that benefits you, like heal overtimes, blades, shields, maybe even damage overtimes on the enemy that will benefit you as well, weaknesses on the enemy that will also benefit you. And that's the whole point of a gambit. You sacrifice those for a new effect. The max for this is going to be 1500 health. That is a significant upgrade when it comes towards how strong this heal can potentially be. Next up is Angry Snow Pig. Initially it pushes 1 weakness and then deals some ice damage. Now it pushes 3 weaknesses at the target and deals 315 ice damage. So a little bit more reliable when it comes towards the damage department because there's no range for it. Very good as a potential mob killer. Also pretty good if you just want to take off weaknesses off of you and still dish out some decent damage. So I would say Angry Snow Pig goes in the good tier. It is relatively niche because not everyone is going to be utilizing weaknesses against you in PvE, but when they do, it's a useful spell. And then we have Handsome Fomori. Winter Moon is our next spell, and biggest change is 2 of them actually. Number 1, Path B and Path C have been included. So now we have a straight up damage path, which is going to be Path B. And for Path C, which is allowed in advanced content and PvP, it applies 3 minus 65% shield. Not a big fan of Path C, mainly because Ice already has multitude of ways of obtaining shields. To my knowledge, there is the Evil Snowman, removing 2 weaknesses and then applying a considerable shield based on the target school. And I believe it's around the same amount as well, 60 to maybe 65%. It's pretty solid already. It's also cheaper. You also have, I believe, Thieving Dragon removes an aura and applies, I believe, minus 70% shields. So that's already better, and it's cheaper. So when it comes to a spell like this, I would say if it wasn't for the Path B, we would definitely put this to the whatever tier. But because of Path B, and only Path B, it belongs in the amazing tier. Just because of the Path B. That's the only reason. Alright, and there we have the Ice Divum spell, which initially, it just applied 1 trap, I believe specifically a 40% ice trap, or actually universal trap. Now it can either apply a stronger trap or 2 45% universal traps. Kind of okay. I don't really see much use in this one, so we'll put this in the whatever tier. This will be our first whatever tier spell. Next up we have is the Storm School. Now for Storm School we have Hammer of Thor. Next we have is Berry Surprise. Now the main change is going to be that the heal overtime is a lot less powerful now. Initially the Path B was 250 storm damage and then applies a 800 total healing within 2 heal overtimes within 4 rounds. And now it is more storm damage, but much weaker heal overtime within 3 rounds. And for Path C, if you want to focus more on the healing path of it, it would now be 570. It's not bad. It's cheap. Like I think that's like the main thing is that like it's a cheap spell you can use that has like heal overtime capability. It's kind of decent. So I would say new Berry Surprise change is okay. I would say it's kind of whatever. Not much new to it. Just weaker now. But at least just the damage is stronger, I suppose. Catalan's new change is going to be that the Path B now is a minus 40% weakness, and Path C can apply 2 minus 30% weaknesses and still does a considerable amount of damage. Likelihood of you using this is pretty low. Most of the time, you're going to be using spells like this as a mob killer, and the weaknesses, while they can be useful in certain fights, it's kind of whatever. It's not terrible, but it's whatever. So in PvE, I would say it's whatever tier. Queen Calypso, which biggest change is going to be that the infection is actually much stronger. We have minus 80% healing weakness, or Path C, which is going to be applying 2 minus 70% healing weaknesses at the target. Kind of whatever. I personally still prefer Path A because, you know, more damage. Yippee! And it's a windstorm, so you can apply traps to both the boss and the target, so it's a lot more useful in comparison to Path B or C. especially because spells like Threefold Fever, those spells still exist, and it's already better for what you want to do anyway. Next up we have is Catch of the Day. Now, Catch of the Day initially for Path B did 630 storm damage and applies to 45% universal blades at the caster. Pretty nice, right? Well, then you have the newer version. Path B is going to be giving a plus 65% blade, chromatic blade. In this case, this version is going to be based on the caster school. If you're a myth wizard, you get a myth blade. If you're a storm wizard, obviously you get the storm blade. If you're a balance wizard, it's likely going to be a universal blade, or maybe even a balance blade for that matter. But yes, you get yourself a 65% chromatic blade, and then Path C, you can sacrifice some damage, and instead of the 65% balance or chromatic blade, you get a 45% chromatic blades. So, kind of solid. Really like the Path B. I would say new Catch of the Day in terms of PvE is a amazing change. And finally, we have Revolutionary Strike. So what they did with this spell, they increased the pip cost from 1 pip and a storm pip to 3 pips and the storm pip. So we're talking about 3 pips and 5 pips in total. Path A's kind of stayed the same. Not much has really changed. Well, wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. Oh, never mind. I didn't read that correctly. Wait, hold on. That's actually kind of huge. I didn't really read it correctly. Like, I was just kind of glancing over it. That's actually huge. So, let me explain. Let's say, for example, you were in a little bit of a pickle, right? And you needed to get some sort of healing off. You start using a spell like Availing Hands, which did get buffed recently, or even a Regenerate, which does a considerable amount of heal overtime healing. So what we have here is a mob killer that applies an extension to, instead of 1 heal overtime, we're talking about 2 heal overtimes. And with that, those extensions are going to last for 3 rounds instead of 2 rounds. That is absolutely insane. Because not only do you have a spell that is just going to destroy a mob right away, but that's 3 rounds of extra healing. Like, your survivability is quite significantly increased. Like, if you were to use a healing current, for example, or if you were to extend your pet, let's say you had a healing current on your pet and you extend that. That's huge. Oh my. That's actually big. Now, the only drawback to this is the fact that, unfortunately, healing is based with the new crit block system, and the new crit block system prevents you from doing double healing. This was a balance change for PvP that for some reason affected PvE, and we do not know why. But if you were to have it to where you make it where in PvE, if you were to crit a heal, you get double the healing instead of what we have currently, and you just use healing current with this spell, your survivability goes off the charts. It is insane. And then for Path B, you steal 2 heal overtimes, and extend it for 1 round, then dish out some storm damage. Honestly, I gotta say, Path A, dude. I think Path A is the wave. Not only does it do more damage, so it's a better mob killer, but that double extension of heal overtime for 3 rounds is huge. Oh, that's easily going to the amazing tier. All right, next up we have is the Fire School. So what we have here is going to be Krampus for the first spell that we will be reviewing for fire. Initially, it detonated 1 damage overtime, then applies 2 damage overtimes that do a total of 610 fire damage within 4 rounds. Now, we have, it will detonate 1 overtime, but that detonation will increase the potency of that overtime by 180%. So we're basically adding a feint into that overtime damage. Absolutely insane. Krampus easily goes into the amazing tier. Lawless Unleash, which will push a, before then, it will push a trap to the target, then deals chromatic damage overtime damage of 650 within 2 overtimes within 4 rounds at the target. I know, kind of a lengthy description, but all it does is that it applies based on your school, right? So if you were a storm wizard, it will put 2 storm damage overtimes at the target and do this amount of damage within 4 rounds. The only thing I would like to note is that the damage is going to be based on your fire stats. So in this case, you will want to, if you want to get the max amount in terms of just damage and damage alone, you want to rock some fire damage with dual schooling. But the big thing I want to talk about is primarily just the trap counter. Again, this is a pretty solid trap counter. Now, the likelihood of you going against enemies that happen to utilize traps often, not too much. You kind of see them more within Arc 4 and up, in my opinion. But it's still pretty solid. You know, it's decent. There's not that many trap counters out there that you can utilize that are relatively cheap. So I would say this is a pretty good change for Nautilus here. Next up, we have this Brimstone. So main change for Brimstone, essentially Path B applies a fire feint to the enemy because reasons. And then the Path C applies 2 50% fire traps at the enemy. Honestly, pretty good. I think this is pretty good. Like, if you were to want to remove a weakness off of you and still have some sort of buff, got that at your disposal. Pretty solid. Can't say anything too bad about it. It can be niche, but still pretty solid, so good tier. Burning Rampage. Initially 70 damage, and then applies 2 chromatic DOTs. And it will deal 840 damage in 5 rounds. And then for the bottom path, which is Path B, it's going to be more fire damage initially, and then applies a chromatic dot that does 420 chromatic dot damage within 4 rounds. Nothing too crazy. I would say this spell is kind of whatever. It was also hard to describe. It's kind of hard to describe these spells because, like, I would just have to tell you, y'all have to experiment with these spells. It is really hard to describe them if you don't really experiment with them. Like, the best way to learn is by experimentation. That's just my philosophy. So, regardless though, it's not that great. So, it definitely goes into the whatever tier. Next up we have is Fire Divum here. Now, Fire Divum, biggest change, it got a damage upgrade. It got a little bit of a heal overtime nerf as well. Nothing too crazy about. Path A, solid fire damage, and then does up to 450 heal overtime within 3 rounds. And Path B increases the heal overtime. So, really solid spell. Still does a considerable amount of damage. Fire has really good offensive stats. So this is essentially another spell that can potentially be a mob killer and still gives you a pretty solid heal over time. If you were to rock some mending pins, heal mending pins for fire, which is relatively possible, it's pretty solid. Again, it's not too bad. It's niche, but it's not too bad. So we're gonna put Fire Divum in the good tier. And finally, for the Fire School, we're going to be going over Apocalypse. Apocalypse does fire damage and then detonates 2 overtimes. New version now detonates 2 overtimes, and they are boosted by 145%. So essentially, you applied a blade, a enchanted blade on 2 overtimes. A lot of spells have double overtimes or bomb dots, so spells like this are going to be really useful to combo with. So I would say Apocalypse is definitely going to the amazing tier. It's an amazing change. Next up, we have this Scar Spin. We also have the new Pigsy spell. Regenerate can do up to 1150 heal. Oh, no, that's... nah. Oh, God. Nah. Oh, God. Yeah, I take that back. It's not terrible. Oh my god, regenerate. I mean, it does cost more pips to do regenerate though, you know, to be fair, but... Oh yeah, yeah, that's kind of tough. Yeah, I don't know about that one, Chief. I don't know about that one. Oh, but Frenchie, you can use that on, like, everybody now. It's like, yeah, but it's so mid. I think how it was before, like, if we were talking about balancing, for balancing sake. I think what it was before was better, right? Because like, doesn't a select target affect even the heal over time? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys. Does the select target affect the heal over time as well? I would assume the answer to this question is yes. And if that's the case, I think it's garbage. I think it's absolutely garbage. This is literally because they're probably salty about raids or something. That players were clearing it or something. I don't know. Yeah, this spell, nah, I can't, within my mind of conscience, I simply just cannot say this change is good. It may look good if you don't pay attention to the, you know, fine print. You know, if you don't pay attention to the fine print, it may look good. But this is simply just works for generate. Camp Bandit change, main change is going to be, it pushes 2 damage overtimes. Now, there's not really much spells that push damage overtimes. I think the only spell that I know that everyone can use is going to be... Well, everyone can do triage, right? When it comes towards removing overtimes, like damage overtimes. Gearhead is the other one. And that's kind of it. There's other spells that can do a little bit more than just countering damage overtimes and gives you extra effect. One that comes to mind is Leviathan for the weaknesses, but I don't find that as useful. Personally, I think King Art, Life King Artorias is a lot more useful, giving yourself some heal overtimes, and that's really good for survivability purposes. But this one's cheap. That's the good thing about it, is that this is cheap. Gearhead, Destroyer, I believe only swaps 1 damage overtime. So this is decent. I would say Cat Bandit is niche, but definitely in the good tier. All right, next up we have is the new Luminous Weaver. So new Luminous Weaver, main change is going to be that they increased the Heal Blade and Life Blade to 35% in Path B, and then Path C increases that even more. Kind of good. Can't say it's whatever, because it could be good if you just want to get yourself something for a little bit later. You know, I can't really say too much bad about it. I think overall it's fine. Maybe whatever tier. It's probably in the middle between whatever to good tier. But assuming that you're able to just kind of one-shot mobs anyway with this spell and get yourself a nice heal blade and a life blade for the next hit, honestly, it'd probably be good. It'd probably be in the good tier, low-key. Niche but good to whatever tier. I think it's more on the good side though, but that's just me. All right, new Goat Monk here. So new Goat Monk initially was considerable amount of life damage and then applies a 395 heal overtime within 5 rounds. Now it is Path B, 345 life damage and 570 heal overtime within 3 rounds, or you can decrease that damage more and have 2 heal overtimes that do up to 990 healing within 4 rounds. I mean, I think it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Like, I don't think it's that great for Life, because Life already has so many different healing capabilities. They can even use something like a regen. Like, literally, they could just simply use regenerate. If they really want to heal that badly, you could literally use a regenerate to an imp and just like immediately just activate that heal overtime with imp. It's just not really necessary. So I would say Goat Monk definitely goes in the whatever tier. Sacred Charge. Honestly, the main change with Sacred Charge is going to be that it sacrifices a little bit or considerable amount of damage for a stronger outgoing healing aura for 4 rounds. Still a good mob killer, even though the damage was decreased. And the healing aura can be very useful to get you back from very little health to max health in very little time. So very solid. I would say the only time this goes bad is going to be maybe around Arc 4, Arc 5. I would say more Arc 5, like Selenopolis realm and up, because enemies tend to use negative auras more often. So other than that, I think it's pretty solid. So I would say Sacred Charge goes to the niche but good tier. And next up, we have the Deaf School. So Headless Horseman, big change is going to be that the weakness in Path C is stronger to 45%. So I would say pretty whatever. Definitely goes in the whatever tier. Ship of Fools, which we skipped over for some reason. Big change is going to be that it has the select target mechanic, which we just mentioned is less punishing compared to the divided damage effect. And it steals 3 blades. I believe it's 3 blades per enemy. Can be pretty useful depending on the situation. I would say it is probably in the whatever tier though. Next up, Deer Knight. Main change really is just a minus 40% weakness at select targets. In PvE, you won't be utilizing this too much. Even for potential strategies, it won't be utilized too much. So I would say easily goes to the whatever tier. Lord of Night. This makes sense because again, it is the death class. They are a class that is anti-healing, which makes sense. Decent for death, I suppose. Not too many healing bosses or even mobs for that matter. So spells like this won't be as useful, and Threefold Fever also does exist and is cheaper. So I would say Lord of Night, well, it makes sense, definitely belongs in the whatever tier. And then we have Kiai, the Deaf Divum spell. So Deaf Divum, main change, Blade has been increased from 35 to 45%. And also Path B will apply 2 30% blades for less death damage. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's basically like Savage Paw, so it can be a pretty decent mob killer and still apply some blades. So I wouldn't say it's whatever tier. I would say this one is good but niche. I honestly should add a good but niche tier now that I'm thinking about it. But I would say this is definitely in the good but niche tier. All right, and then we have Monk of Mourning. So Monk of Mourning, biggest change is going to be that the shield is stronger in Path B. Well, we added a Path B and a C. Shield is strong in Path B. Excellent mob killer, honestly. Still a pretty excellent mob killer. And then Path C applies 2 minus 60% shields. It's good. Not too much to say about it other than it's pretty good. Alright everybody, let's try to find out what the balance school is. Next up is Samurai. So what it initially did for the Path B was a 30% shield on the caster. Now it is a 70% shield. Or in Path C, which is 2 60% shields. Honestly, pretty solid. that's pretty solid. Like I kind of like it, so I would say that's definitely in the good tier. Savage Paw, main change is going to be that it includes a Path B and C now. B applies a 45% blade, and C applies 2 35% blades at the caster. It's alright. It's good. Still think that the Cash of the Day is better. However, Savage Paw is better in accuracy, so it's a lot more reliable to cast. So I would say this is still in the good tier. Especially if you're a balance wizard. Lore Master is the next one up. So what we have here now is Lore Master now has changed from the Path B and C. It removed the mantle entirely, and now it is weakness based. So middle path is 35% weakness, and the Path C is going to be 2 30% weaknesses. So it's alright. I would say it's kind of in the whatever tier. I would just prefer the top path at that point. So Lord Master change, definitely whatever for PvE, but still pretty good spell. Then we have Divim's Resurgence, also known as Balanced Divim. So initially it was 2 minus 30%. This is a healing trap, which is interesting because healing traps are just kind of there. I mean, they're not fantastic. The problem I have with healing traps is really the fact that the effectiveness of the hanging effect isn't just that effective, even if you're just trying to reduce healing. Again, the point of this is probably to set up certain gambits or so, but there's not really that many out there that will need trap gambits per se. It's fine. Like, I think it's just kind of a whatever spell. So Myth Divim definitely goes in Balance Div goes in the whatever tier. And finally, the moment that I've been waiting for, and maybe some of you who are myth mains, we have the myth spells. First up, we have is my most favorite change, Grendel's Amends. It used to be a very pathetic heal. Now we have an extremely overpowered and strong heal. So easily, Grendel's Amends goes into the amazing tier. Hey guys, it's Frenzy from the future, and I thought that I would go over some of the spells again for the ones I missed along with the myth ones, because I have changed some of my opinions on them, and also I want to talk about the remade list here, since I did actually ended up to add the niche tier. So this is the good but niche tier. These are for spells that, yes, they are considered, at least in my opinion, good for certain scenarios, but they're not going to be used for every single scenario. You can make the argument that the ones that are in the good tier are going to have use cases with almost every scenario, but with the niche tier, it is a little bit more rare. In fact, Burrowing Bane, I would say, is in the middle here between niche and good. It just depends on the person's playstyle and if they have access to spells like Apocalypse to really utilize those deferred dot boosters or just DOT boosters in general. So first things first, I want to go over the balance school. Spiritual Tribunal, this is what it initially was. It was a spirit hit that can do either life, death, or myth damage, and the 3 paths are going to increase one of those spirit classes hits. It's going to increase the chances, and the new version now is going to add a heal over time. So for path A, we just kind of kept it to life only for the increased chance. In terms of path B and path C, we have weaker damage for both of them, being 345 spirit damage and then applies a 390 heal over time for 3 rounds, with path C sacrificing some damage for a stronger heal over time of now 570 for 3 rounds. I was a bigger fan of its initial release where it was doing like about 1,000 heal over time, which I thought was insane, but now it's much weaker than what was teased, and you could just simply use Availing Hands and it will definitely get the job done if you really want to heal, you really want to have some sort of sustainability. So Spiritual Tribunal definitely goes into the whatever tier for me personally. The next spell that I want to go over here is going to be Ninja Piglets, and with that we might as well go over Burrowing Bane as well. Ninja Piglets, this is what it was before, and this is what it is now. Personally, I think the older version was definitely better if you're talking about dealing with shields, but the newer version does make up for that initial hit loss. It's added to the deferred dot now, which I think is kind of okay. The biggest issue for Ninja Piglets is going to be weaknesses. If a balance wants to remove weaknesses, their best bet is either using a purge, but that's kind of it. If you use any spell, like let's say for example an Evil Snowman, where you're trying to get some shields at the same time and also remove extra weaknesses by the initial hit as well, it's going to be not ideal for a balance wizard, since Ninja Piglets will only be boosted with either your auras, or primarily for a lot of people, they love using blades or traps. And unfortunately for balance, their blades and traps are universal. So getting the benefit, the full benefit out of Ninja Piglets is definitely not going to be there. However, at the same time, it does a decent amount of damage for a 4-pip spell. So Ninja Piglets went up from the Fa tier all the way to the whatever tier. It can have some sort of use cases if you combine with Apocalypse, but beyond that, it's going to be really hard to buff up for Ninja Piglets in comparison to a spell like Burrowing Bane, which is what we're going to be mentioning here. So Burrowing Bane, top path does some initial life damage and then a weaker deferred dot of 200 after 3 rounds, versus the path B, which is simply all the damage going to 2 deferred dots within 6 rounds. I would say personally, definitely go with the path B route. If you have access to Apocalypse, it's definitely going to be your best friend. It's just simply another buff that's going to be added with that deferred dot usage. and it's much easier to blade up for a Burying Bane in comparison to the Ninja Piglets. And it really just depends on your playstyle and if you're willing to go for Apocalypse simply just to use spells like Burying Bane. And I believe also Spiny Sword is deferred dots as well, so that will also be another spell that will be pretty useful with Apocalypse. But it's really all dependent on the player. I may personally use it. I may personally actually try to get enough spell elements with Apocalypse so I can utilize it with Burying Bane, because it is definitely a very solid, cheap life hit that does a lot of damage. So with that, it is definitely in the niche scenario, but I will say it is definitely pretty good. But it is more along the lines of niche. It depends on the player. More on the balance school, I think I already mentioned Savage Paw. Blade and hit, I mean hit and blade, those are always pretty nice to have, so easily, you know, it'll stay within the good tier. Good mob killer. Lore Master, easily whatever tier. Hidden Weakness just isn't as useful in PvE a lot of the time. Double Trap, I mean, this could be kind of good, I guess, for some sort of gambits, but beyond that, it's not really going to be seeing much use, so easily Balanced Divum goes in the whatever tier. And I believe another spell that I missed is Brave Sir Badger. Now, this is a hit and aura. The only problem with the spell is while it is a decent minion killer, you're going to probably prefer using Frenzy anyway. And also, it suffers the same thing as a Sacred Charge would once you get to around Selenopolis and up. And I would say maybe even Arc 4 if they implemented some negative auras with the other enemies. It's definitely going to be very hard to keep up those auras if the enemy is just simply going to apply a negative aura on you. So its use case definitely goes down quite considerably, but automatically most people are going to prefer to use Frenzy anyway, which is why it easily goes into the whatever tier for Brave Sir Badger. And finally for Myth, we already went over Grendel's Amends. It is a fantastic spell. Easily goes into the amazing tier. It is basically an unconditional, I think about 12 to 1300 healing, which is insane. It is very powerful, so easily goes into the amazing tier. Splash Squatch. Now, Splash Squatch, honestly, I really do like, because what we have here, you have the original path, which is just going to be damage path. The middle path is also a damage path, but it's going to be doing more damage because it costs more. So instead of being 4 pips, it will be a 5 pip spell, and it'll do more damage. Pretty solid. The bottom path, Path C, is actually very good, because this is going to be really useful if you're going against a spam shield boss and you want to utilize a spell like a Jhin, like a fantastic Jhin. Like, this will be the spell that you will utilize in order to help with your setup of Jhin. And that is definitely pretty huge. It will be really good for any sort of shield gambits. I believe even Ice has a shield gambit. So for Ice Wizards, you could definitely utilize this to set up for your Ice shield gambit. But that's pretty much why overall Splash Squatch definitely goes into the good tier, because it definitely has its multi-use. If you don't care for the Path C, you will at least care for the fact that there is damage paths that are available, and it does good amount of damage overall. Keeper of the Flame, this easily goes into the amazing tier. This is essentially a universal hit and trap spell that is a very powerful trap. Now, most hidden trap spells aren't really that useful, but the thing that makes Keeper of the Flame a little different is that it is a chromatic trap. So it is a lot harder to remove this if you're just trying to remove shields and weaknesses by using other schools that are not within your own. But how this works is with the chromatic effect, it's going to be based on the caster school. If you're a Storm Wizard, it will apply a, for example, for Path B, a plus 70% Storm Trap. Fire Wizard, plus 70% Fire Trap, etc, etc. So, very solid spell. And then Path C applies 2 50% traps that are chromatic as well. Very solid for pretty much any class, so easily it goes in the amazing tier. Now for Ninja Pigs, I really like this new change because what it does is that it just allows Myth to have a little bit of a different playstyle with utilizing their double hits more often. They have quite a bit of double hits like the Well spell from Novus, Thoth, I believe, from Selenopolis, and many more. So having dual traps or even just a fuel, for example, is really solid. And yes, you can potent trap them. It is indeed possible to potent trap them. So very easy buff to do. The only downside is the pip cost. I believe if they were to reduce the pip cost, it would be solid. But as it stands, I would say Ninja Pigs easily goes in the niche tier. Athena Battle Sight, Hidden Shield. The only problem with this is that it's a universal shield, which is nothing too bad about it. It's just that if you were trying to use this to set up for a Jhin, for example, it won't be useful in that scenario because since it's a universal shield, anything can remove it. But also, hidden shields just are kind of meh. Like, they're fine. They're not fantastic, but they can have its uses if you don't pack shield to yourself and want some easy defense while removing a mob. So it will go within the niche here for me personally. Hero Chrysalis, it actually changed from a deferred dot spell to a DOT spell. Top half doing some considerable myth damage of 410 and then applies a 210 myth overtime damage within 3 rounds. And the bottom path is going to be 840 myth damage with 2 damage overtime for myth within 5 rounds. So really good to set up a Apocalypse there and can remove shields. So overall, I would say pretty good spell for myth if you want to utilize it with Apocalypse, which I did a ton, honestly, in Darkmoor. So it's really nice. And then Reckon Eden, they just basically buffed the utility here. Top path kind of remains the same, removes 3 shields and then applies some solid myth damage. And then the bottom path now removes even more shields, but it costs more pips. It's now 6 pips in total, 4 pips and the myth pip. And it does more myth damage, specifically 525 myth damage starting off. And this will definitely have some cases for usage against bosses that have shield cheats and you just want to utilize a relatively strong hit right away so you can get some free damage out there. This definitely will be useful for bosses like the bear boss in Chrysalis, in Sardonyx, I believe, and also the elephant in Mirror Lake. So there are some cases you will be using this, but it's not too many. It's still a pretty good spell, so easily goes within the niche tier. With that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. Again, huge shout out to Genevieve for providing the material here that allowed me to cover this stuff. Again, check them out. Really awesome content creator. As always, if you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and always remember to stay frenzy and peace.